Hello to everyone on TVBS. We are actually very proud to have Anduril, CEO and founder Palmer Lucky with us on set today in Taiwan. Say hi to the camera for us.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So to begin with, could you share about your trip to Taiwan this time?
No, it's been great. I mean, we've been here mostly for our work with the military, but also meeting with a lot of suppliers that we already work with, meeting with some new suppliers as well. Anduril has increased our work with Taiwanese suppliers by about 15 times over the last 2 years. So we have a lot of components that are made in Taiwan. We have a lot of assemblies that are being produced here as well. So I've got a lot of friends to say hi to.
How much opportunities do you think it's in Taiwan for Anduril?
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunities. One, on the side of working, obviously, with the military, but also Taiwan is one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world. It's one that's deeply aligned with U.S. Policy interests. It's one that's deeply aligned with our technology interests. The United States economy wouldn't work without Taiwan. And so I think the areas of collaboration are kind of endless, from semiconductors to sensors to optics to precision metallics, even to certain technologies. I won't say exactly what they are because I don't want my competition to find out, but there's certain things that you can only buy in Taiwan, certain advanced technologies that don't even exist in the United States or anywhere else. And so I want to leverage those advantages to make better products.
You made the headlines last year because you actually came to personally meet with the Minister of National Defense, Beng Sung-koo, where Altus drones were actually delivered. But there's been some debates in Taiwan over the past few months about the Altus drones capabilities, because we actually have seen its performance, both good and both bad on the front lines.
I've been following it very, very closely, and I follow the Taiwan press about our company very, very closely. To be honest, it's been a little frustrating because a lot of the press that I'm seeing, they're referencing problems with Altius that did exist when it was first deployed in Ukraine years ago. And I mean, I'll admit, it wasn't just Anduril, it was really most US munitions when they actually went toe-to-toe with Russian jamming systems, Russian electronic warfare systems, had problems with navigation, we had problems with communication. The difference between us and a lot of other companies is that we stayed in Ukraine and fixed those problems. So we were in Ukraine the second week of the war. We were there continuously with people, hardware, and software updates. We figured out how to break the Russian electronic warfare. We figured out how to make navigation work completely without GPS. And Altius, the product, is very different today from Altius of 3 or 4 years ago when it first started running into these challenges. And so people have said, oh, there were these challenges in Ukraine. Those were real challenges. But there's a reason that Ukraine continues to buy them, that the U.S. continues to send them as part of U.S. aid packages, that countries like the United Kingdom have continued to send. We actually just sent our last truckload of Altius, which was strongly requested by Ukraine last fall. So we're still sending large numbers of these, and we're responsible for destroying. Altius specifically is responsible for destroying hundreds of millions of dollars in Russian hardware. So I'm very proud of its performance. And so, of course, you can see where it's frustrating where I read, oh, there's been reports that it has problems in combat. And I'll say, if those problems still existed, Ukraine wouldn't be buying them. They wouldn't be requesting them. The United States Army wouldn't be doubling down on its investment in Altius either.
So what I'm trying to say is that in the latest FMS to Taiwan, Altus 600 and 700 is part of the package too. So what I'm trying to say is that Altus is not only going to sell this to those to Taiwan, but you guys are going to be here to ensure that they function.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Because I mean, like, when we look at Taiwanese capabilities, we actually, in a very recent debate in Taiwan is like, what's the percentage of domestic drones and also foreign drones? Do you have a perfect number in mind?
I mean, I think the perfect number would be that Taiwan is able to make everything that it needs on island using on island resources, because you might end up in a situation where you're not able to have continuous resupply. You look at Ukraine, it's very different. With Ukraine, we can continue to resupply them through Europe continuously through a war, even through an invasion scenario. That might not be the case with Taiwan. And so I think it's actually even more important for things to be built natively in Taiwan. Now, we're actually working on doing more of that. I want to be able to manufacture Anduril systems in country in Taiwan, not just for Taiwan, but even to the level of having enough production capacity to sell back into the United States, back into other countries as an export partner. political reality has changed over the last few years. I think in the past, the US position was buy from us, buy from us, buy from us, don't make your own things. The US has so much need and so much demand and is so far behind on deliveries of weapons to partners. I mean, what's the average delay, I think, between, I think FMS typically takes 7 years from US to Taiwan. We need more partners just to help us meet the demand in general. And so I think the new view in the US is build in the US, build in the US, build in the US, and build in all of these partner countries, and try to build as much as we can.
So you mentioned about investing in Taiwan and manufacturing in Taiwan, and meeting with Taiwanese partners this time to see how is that viable. I mean, not only setting up an office, but having a manufacturing factories in Taiwan.
Well, the majority of the hiring that we're doing in Taiwan is engineers. So it's not like salespeople or office managers. It's primarily engineers who are doing designing and manufacturing and real technical work. I think that we have a small presence here. Mostly we've been working with contract manufacturers that are based in Taiwan, component companies that are based in Taiwan, machining companies that are based in Taiwan. I want to have a much larger manufacturing presence in Taiwan. We haven't been able to find the perfect thing to justify that yet. So, for example, we have a facility in the United States called Arsenal One that is almost 1 million square meters. It's a huge facility. We have not found the right thing to build a similar thing here, like like an Arsenal T. We've not gotten quite there yet, but I'm feeling very optimistic about it, and it's something I would love to do. Would be integrate Anduril with Taiwan native production capacity and make enough of all of these drones, not just for Taiwan, but also for export.
What would be the perfect incentive for you to do that in Taiwan?
It just has to be that the government is procuring something that can justify that level of scale. We're willing to invest huge amounts of our own money. Like with Arsenal One, the government didn't pay us to build that factory. We spent $900 million US of our own money building that factory before we even had the contract for the thing that it is now building. And so we're willing to invest huge amounts of money, billions of dollars US, if we have the right way to actually make use of it. In other words, my investors won't let me spend $1 billion on a factory that sits empty. But if I can keep it busy, they're happy to let me invest.
I want to move on to your partnerships with ANSYS, especially the underwater drone that they actually display to the media and also to the U.S. senators and congressmen when they visit. It is a very nice image of this big orange drone, and people in Taiwan were actually very enthralled and interested in that. So could you actually share with us more about your partnership with ANSYS, including that drone?
Well, we've had a very good relationship with ANSYS over the last few years. And in fact, a lot of the relationships that we have with other commercial vendors, commercial partners, and manufacturing and component partners actually came through ANSYS because they have this deep relationship with Taiwan industry, and in particular, vendors who are building things without dependence on PRC supply chain, which is very critical for arms items. So we've continued to work with them, not just on that, but also a variety of commercial applications of our technology. A lot of people think of Anduril just as a military company, but we actually build things like underwater systems for subsea inspection, for oil and gas, for subsea infrastructure maintenance, repair, and monitoring. And they've been a great partner with that.
One criticism that ANSYS sometimes receives in Taiwan is regarding like how good their system is. And I'm just very curious, how does Anduril feels working with them? Like what you guys actually talk about in terms of knowledge sharing?
I mean, I have nothing. I have no criticisms. I've had a great time with all the people. I mean, obviously, I can't speak for every criticism everyone may have had of an organization. People have made pretty good criticisms of my organization, us, and sometimes things go wrong. But in general, we've had a great relationship with ANSYS. So I've not run into any problems where their stuff's not working or where they're idiots. They're sharp guys. Do
you have any more interesting projects that you can actually preempt us on your works with ANSYS? Sorry.
It's probably inappropriate for me to say before anything is too real. I always try to keep things very, very real. I like to talk about things that are definitely happening, really moving forward. Otherwise, people think I'm a dreamer with my head in the clouds. But I think that a big opportunity is going to be products that are built with combination Taiwan and US supply chain for government agencies that cannot depend on products that use PRC supply chain. So for example, don't even think weapons. Think things that are maybe a little more boring to the average person. Think about your Wi-Fi router or your TV or your laptop computer. There's opportunities for us to build a parallel supply chain that is good for the US and good for Taiwan, deepens the relationship, and makes it so that the US and Taiwan are not dependent on PRC supply chain. And I think that's good in a kind of a wartime scenario, but it's especially good in a pre-war scenario because it means that everyone knows we're not as dependent on them, right? It gives more room for diplomatic levers to be used when they know that China doesn't have the ability to, hypothetically, turn off the supply of all computers or phones to the United States. So I think that's, I know that's a big picture thing, but I'm working on specific items in that area, and I think it's going to take close collaboration between agencies like NCIST, Taiwan, the US, and companies like Anduril to make this happen.
I just want to move on to the idea when you talk about like the supply chain, what we in Taiwan call the non-red supply chain.
Yeah.
Meaning like
exactly. Yeah. I want to apply the idea of non-red supply chain not just to weapons, which is where everybody really talks about it. Also, even drones, they understand the security risks. So they say non-red supply chain for drones. I want to see non-red supply chain for all of the essentials of everyday life, all of the things that we need to maintain our quality of life on a day-to-day basis. And maybe that results in price increases. Maybe that results in certain capabilities not being quite as good. I mean, China has a really powerful manufacturing machine, but I think it's good for the world for non-red options to exist across all critical items, not just weapons.
Do you believe that non-red supply chain is going to continue to be an issue or something that is still very, I would say, appealing to the people in DC?
I think it will be an enduring issue, and it's across all political parties. The libertarians believe in this. The Green Party believes in this. The Democrats believe in this. The Republicans. So the large parties and the small parties. There's nobody who thinks that we need to have more dependence on China because they know that we're giving them leverage in this case. It's easier for them to negotiate with the United States and get their way when, if we don't do what they want, they could basically shut off a lot of our critical industry and shut off a lot of our critical supply chain. Not just for computers. Think about things like cars. A lot of automotive manufacturing happens in the US, but it's based on red supply chain. And so there's a strong push to get away from red supply chain. I think that will be an enduring issue for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
想看最完整的新闻内容，记得下载 TVBS 新闻网 APP。